Haskell. She's with Total Writing Enrichment. So Amy helps students write their college essays, and she's awesome at it. You need to, reach out to Amy if you're struggling with that at all right now, or if you've got a kiddo that's doing that. So Amy, how are you doing today?
I am terrific. Thank you so much. This is going to be a lot of fun, and I can't wait to dive into our content.
Yeah, so I've seen all over Facebook yesterday and last night parents that were really concerned about the big breaking news in the SAT world that they are doing away with the subject test.
Yeah, it's so interesting because I think anything to do with standardized tests immediately unnerves us. It is something that parents and kids feel like is beyond their control in the first place, right? Some kids study, take these tests 3, 4, 5, 6 times. Sometimes their test scores increase, many times they don't. So in the first place, SAT causes a lot of buzz. And I don't know about you, but yes, certainly all over Facebook and Twitter and even LinkedIn in the news are these big changes with the SAT. Now, I know you spoke with Bobby this morning, who specializes in SAT study and prep. And can you please just give us some highlights as far as that conversation, and really how big are these changes and what is the impact on parents and teens?
Yes, and I will tell you, you will be happy to know that based on Bobby's perspective, I asked him, I'm huge fact-based. I'm like, tell me some of the facts around this so that we can either figure out if it's a big challenge or change, or if it's something that is not that big of a deal. And what Bobby told me is that very few schools require that subject test. And he said it's really the military or the naval academies, and then one other random school in like South Texas.
Okay.
So very few schools are requiring it.
Okay.
And his take on it was, you know what, guys, it's just one less thing that you have to worry about and do when you're thinking about college. And, a lot of times Bobby and I are talking about, let's untangle what's going on with college planning, make this simpler for parents. And the reality is it doesn't sound like it's that big of a deal, Amy.
Okay, so wait a minute, because I know that some of these college counselor Facebook groups I'm in right now, their feeds are just exploding with nervous, anxious parents listening to their kids, listening to what's going on from their own schools, college counselors about these changes. So really what I'm hearing from you is, wait a minute, guys, slow down. If we take a minute to unpack what these changes with the SAT really look like, it's probably not that big of a deal in the first place. It's most likely not going to affect, not even saying the average college applicant, really most college applicants, right?
Right. And you had said this earlier, it's all about control. Yes, this is one more thing in this year that we've lost control of. And the reality is it went away. So how do we move forward? What do we do to shine in these college applications, in their essays? What can we do now that we know that this is a reality?
Right. And that I help kids with their essays, and I know that you help kids really dive deep into who they are and looking at their strengths and even more. And so given that, okay, wait a minute, these changes with the SAT right now actually are taking pressure off of our plates as far as the college application process. So in your opinion then, now that we have more time at home, whether our kids are learning 100% at home because of COVID and e-learning, or whether we're home more because so many activities have been canceled, now that we have this time to really hone in on what we can control with starting college applications, in your opinion, what are some tips that you have that kids can focus on and parents can focus on, especially juniors right now? I feel like when we move into second semester junior year, we can feel the heat turn up with the upcoming college application process. So now that we do have more time at home, from your point of view, what can kids, and guided by their parents, do just to help make this process easier?
Yes, and I'll definitely share some, and I'd love you to chime in too.
Yes.
You talk to all your clients as well and kind of hear what's going on emotionally. One of the topics that I think is really interesting is the conversation around, are you supposed to be well-rounded? Are you supposed to be out there being involved in everything? You know, all of the, oh, and I lost my word. When you get volunteering, you know, a lot of that stuff's gone away. You know, being involved in sports, being involved in school, other projects in school. That idea of, is it better to be well-rounded, or is it better to really focus in on one activity?
Right.
And I'll tell you, so in talking to a lot of the college experts out there, I'm hearing them say that, you know, they really suggest that if you can dig into one subject and dig deep, that it's really kind of beneficial, because you start to stand out for them as a good candidate for getting into their college.
So really now using the time to hone in on these strengths and characteristics and how they're going to best approach their upcoming applications is what I'm hearing from you. But tell me
or
about
Amy,
the well-rounded. Yeah.
It's even digging into something you really love to do. So if you really love volleyball, really dig into volleyball and make that your focus. If you really love writing essays, really dig into that. I had a client of mine that he loved beekeeping, you know, and how, you know, different is that? You're not going to hear that every day. But he loved it, and he talked about that, and the college admissions people just ate it up.
Yes, right.
Yeah.
And that's so funny you say that. We were visiting with my husband's family over the weekend, and they had homemade honey from their aunt, who has like a beekeeper by their lake house, and this honey was absolutely delicious. But something you just said as far as standing out, and I think that this is where the magic happens. And I know that this is where your world and my world come together. And wouldn't you say that even if you and I, even if you have a room of the same age kids who grew up in the same city, their parents have similar backgrounds, each one of those kids are different, are unique, are their own unique snowflakes, right? But here's the problem I see. The kids fail to recognize that. So I don't know about you, but I have so many students say, oh, Mrs. Haskell, there's just really nothing unique about me. And this is where my approach as the English teacher comes in, right? Having been trained in studying characters in books so much, now we turn our attention and focus on the students. And if you're listening right now, I just wanted to give Kristen a shout out, because the attention and focus that you give, Kristen, to students and helping them really extract their strengths on a level that's even deeper than what I do with writing these college essays. Honestly, I think it's one of the most valuable gifts you can give your kids, not just for these college applications or the essays, but to gain further insight into their lives. But truly something tangible. Don't you think if a teenager, and this teenage years can be so tricky, but if we can help them better understand who they are and how they see the world and how they want to use those gifts to better their world, starting off in college, those are going to be thumbs on the scale for acceptance, right?
Oh, there's so many great applications. And what Amy's talking about is, I'm a Gallup certified strengths coach. So, and a lot of people have heard of Strengths Finders, and they've actually changed the name of that assessment to the Clifton Strengths Assessment. And I'll tell you, when I have the students take that assessment and then we sit down and talk about their strengths and their natural talents, Amy, these kids grow 2 inches.
Love it.
It's amazing. And part of it is they recognize it in themselves, which is the huge part. So it's great self-realization that I am good at that. And I'll hear that all the time, you know, and if anybody listening, if you've got questions about anything that we're talking about, please put it in the chat. We'll be happy to answer. But the amazing thing that comes out of it is when we're talking about these strengths, and we talk about them one by one, and they can give me examples, like off the top of their head, really easily give me examples. And at the end of it, they always say, you know what, I am really good at this stuff. And I'm like, I know. And you gave me all these examples of how you're awesome. And, you know, what's so cool about that and how it ties to what you do, Amy, with the essay writing, is it gives them this language to be able to tell other people why they're so awesome.
Yes, yes. It gives them the language. It gives them, I say, a humble confidence. Because when it comes time, I found a lot of kids I work with do have a superstar type quality. They are good students. They are stars on the field or on the stage or with volunteering. But they don't know how to find that balance between humbly showcasing their skills and their involvement in a way that makes them feel good about themselves. And like they always say, I don't want to be bragging, Mrs. Haskell. So I love that what you do happens a lot of times before they're actually sitting down with the pressure of filling out the application, right? To focus on themselves. Because as you know, as we both know, when we sit down to write, for anybody, even for published authors, that can add a ton of pressure. Just we learn to speak years before we learn how to write. And what gets me year after year is I have some of the most phenomenal rising seniors who have almost straight A's. They have good or excellent test scores. They've been highly involved, but they've never had to write in the style of the college admissions essay. They've never had to write, or maybe once in their life, they had to write what's called a personal narrative essay. And so the way I started my company was by helping kids in different genres of writing. And one of the areas was the same genre as the college admissions essay. And then it blossomed into really focusing on that. That's my most popular product and service. But Kristen, what you do is help lay the foundation for, I think, the entire college application and the entire college application process. So are you saying that, to go back on the idea that colleges want a well-rounded kid, was I hearing you say that even if a kid has really specified in one sport or one activity, there still is a way to present them as well-rounded?
Actually, I'm actually saying the opposite of that, Amy, that it's that they're not really looking for the well-rounded kid because there's so many of them out there, you know, like that have done all these activities. It's really about, you know, somebody that has done something that's a little bit different, or gotten very deep into it, because it shows a couple things. It shows perseverance. It shows, you know, grit. It shows that they really enjoyed it, so they got deeply involved. And so how the translation for them is, okay, when they come on campus, they're going to have that same sense of grit and perseverance and
okay. And that's exactly what I was getting at. And so parents out there, if you're listening to this, so many times I have students, seniors, who say, oh, Mrs. Haskell, all I've really done is play football. Or all I've really done is musical theater. And I'm not that well-rounded. Well, what we're saying is actually you probably are a lot more well-rounded than you think you are, right? And so it's not just the acting skill, or the starring on the football team for 2, 3, 4 years. What else comes with that? And once you unpack,
it might be leadership within that organization,
leadership, perseverance, coachability, teamwork, plus individual motivation. So that's the secret sauce. That's how do you extract from those activities a lot of those characteristics that I feel like a lot of students at first have blinders on to see. Or they don't want to, oh no, they don't want to say that about themselves. So,
well, that can happen. I think you said it earlier. I think a big part of that is they're afraid of looking like they're bragging, and then they don't see it as special. You know, that's one of the things that we talk about a lot in the Clifton Strengths world, is that because you're so good at these talents, that they're innate to you, and you're like, well, everybody thinks that way. Everybody does this. And the real answer is they don't. You know, you and I've talked about this. You're totally very high in positivity.
Yeah, I've been told that.
Yes, and I love having people high in positivity around me, because not my strength at all, you know? So I don't think positively all the time. So, you know, but you, of course, when you're walking around the world, Amy, you're like, well, yeah, everybody thinks this.
It's so funny you say that. Well, we'll have to do another session on this because I don't all the time, although people tell me that I am one of the most positive people I know, which is something to dive deeper into as far as when that happens or not. But here's the bottom line. As Shakespeare once said, "To thine own self be true." And if a student can clearly know who he or she is, and how many parents out there are watching this right now, and they don't even know clearly who they are, and that's okay. Mm-hmm. But what Kristen and I are saying is, with so many changes in the world, with so many changes with education, and now breaking news with the SAT, really take control. And this is such a lovely time for self-reflection that you can do on your own through journaling, through writing bullet points, or you can work with Kristen and have your teen work with Kristen and really get a clear, comprehensive idea of your or your teen's true strengths. And to take that step further, how is that applicable to the college application process? It's huge, specifically with writing clear, coherent essays, and ultimately with making sure that your child goes to a school that aligns best with their strengths.
Yeah, so, and it goes also to, the fact that we have had these changes with the SAT. What are the ways that they can stand out with their application? And this is a perfect way to do that.
Yes,
and then,
perfect way to do that, yes.
Yeah, and Amy, I find it interesting that when really how our businesses do interact with each other, and that by having the students understand what they're good at and how to put that into, like, we give them that language that we talked about, that when they're starting to write their essay, it's much easier to dig into that.
Are you kidding me? Easy. And I'll wrap it up with this. And this is something great to dive into more in a future session. The number one question I get asked, and I've gotten this when I literally have gone to speak at schools and I have kids write, what question do you still want answered before they leave the classroom, or that I've gotten from parents, or when I start working with kids, it's this: well, what should I write about? I will push back on that and say, it doesn't matter as long as you're clearly conveying your strengths, who you are and how you see the world and how you want to help. You could write about your great Aunt Sally. You could write about sitting on the bench at soccer. You could write about your math class, or you can combine them all. But if you know yourself, then that writing process will be a lot less stressful, and the end product will be absolutely beautiful. It will be the best writing of your life, whether it's, whether you do get into your dream college or not. Having that clarity into your identity is priceless.
Yes. So guys, we can stop stressing about this SAT change, because you've got different ways to impress the admissions teams that are really in your control.
Yes. So. Well, thank you so much for having me. And if any parents are watching this, please hop on over to my website. I have a freebie that you can opt into and gain further insight into specifically how you can be the hero for your kids regarding college applications and writing these daunting essays. So please go ahead, and if you want to reach out to me personally, I'm on Facebook and Instagram as well as LinkedIn. So thank you, Kristen.
Yes, and then one other thing I'll throw in there is I do have a class starting next week for students, and I have these starting throughout the year. So if you're watching this later, you can always get in touch with me for how to pick the right major. Yes. And we do a lot of strengths work within that class, and I got to tell you that the students love it.
Yes, pick the right major and save tons of money and have focus and efficiency towards landing an awesome job, because you know how to pick the right major. I mean, I wish I had that.
So, me too.
Yes.
All right.
Okay. Thank you. Bye-bye.